Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live, another episode and another special guest. I'm delighted to have Dawn Easley here with me from Campbell University. She is the head coach of women's lacrosse. Dawn, thank you so much for joining me. If you would mind, just share a little bit about your background and how you got into this position.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I am Dawn Easley. I've been at Campbell for 10 years now. I got into coaching pretty much right after college. I was in college playing lacrosse at a small school called Pfeiffer University, and I knew I wanted to get into college coaching. However, I took a step from the United States and moved over to England, and I started coaching there for a year at a boarding school. I loved it, missed home, came back. My college coach hired me on as an assistant. So I worked for him for 2 years, 2 wonderful years, and learned a lot while I was back at Pfeiffer. And then he left, and then they hired me as the head coach I think I was 25 when I got hired as a head coach. Maybe may have been 24, but yeah, not very much experience, and had wonderful mentors at Pfeiffer who helped me out a lot. So I was there for 8 years, and then Campbell came and started a program here, and I've been here ever since and absolutely love it. Couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah, I'm curious, coming in as a brand new coach like that, you've been an assistant for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you're in charge. And I was actually speaking to a friend of mine who became a head coach recently, and asked him how it was going. He said, well, I love the coaching, but the meetings. What was it like transitioning from, yeah, okay, you know the players, you know the system, you know the school, but as an assistant, maybe you've been sheltered from a lot of things that the head coach has to do. How did that transition go?
It was tough. Thankfully for me, I had really great mentors at Pfeiffer when I was there, and I had learned a lot from my previous head coach. I think one of the things that you can call it a good thing or a bad thing, but one of the things that I did really well was when I made a decision, I stuck to it and I owned it, and it was my decision, good or bad, ugly or not. I stuck to it, and I think that helped critique the way I was able to make decisions in the future, learning how to have thick skin and move forward regardless of the outcome, I think was something that I had to learn very quickly. And I had a boss one time tell me that you're never ready to be a head coach, regardless if you have 2 years of being an assistant or 20 years of being an assistant. You're never ready to be a head coach, because learning how to make decisions and own your decisions is something that takes time and experience. I think the benefit I have was just being able to do it at a young age and learning quickly what that feels like.
Yeah. Were there any particular challenges as becoming head coach that maybe you didn't anticipate, or somebody needs to be aware of when they do become a head coach?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I think it differs on the age of the person. I think one of the things that I struggled with early on in my career was the age difference, and trying to figure out how do I take this program as a 25-year-old and use my life experiences, my minimal life experiences, to challenge these 18 to 22-year-olds. With some of the girls that I was coaching, they were incoming freshmen the year that I left, and so I never played with them. But there was definitely a lot of playing with common girls, so that was a really hard thing for me to get over early on in my career. But I think the struggles were just that age difference early on in my career.
How do you deal with that? I mean, literally, you have the same interests. You probably know the same people. You probably want to hang out in the same places. How did you separate your personal life from your professional life so that the athletes knew that you were head coach and you made the hard decisions?
I am a firm believer in that you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I was determined to be a successful head coach. And so I situated myself around people who I wanted to be like, people who would hold me accountable and challenge me in my professional and personal life. One of them being my husband now, and also administrators and other coaches who were in it. and being driven to be more like those people, and I think help guide me to make the right decisions along the journey.
So you became head coach. You were there several years. One of the interesting things I always find is when coaches choose to leave a program,
Mm-hmm.
when coaches decide to move on, because there is that sense perhaps of letting people down by moving on, right? You've maybe recruited athletes, you've spent years with them, and then it's okay, I'm moving on. Sorry, bye. How do you make that decision? Because it's hard. I mean, even when I moved to Florida State, I was leaving students behind. And that was hard because they had signed up for my program. How do you make that decision, or what allowed you to make that decision?
Well, isn't that the great thing about the profession that we're in, is that your heart is being tugged in one direction because you've built those relationships with those students, and they've built you up, you've built them up, and it's a blessing to have those relationships. That it is hard to leave when it's time. I think for me, it came down to um, prayer and just the tug of my heart, knowing that it was time to take a step in the next direction for both personally and professionally. But what a great thing to have those relationships with your players, knowing that your relationships don't stop just because you're no longer their coach, but you're always going to be there for each other. And I think while it was an incredibly hard thing to do, is leave not just my players who I'd recruited and coached and been successful with, but my alma mater. That was hard, but those relationships never go away, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Mm. Now, you've been at Campbell for a number of years now, and I think there's a danger sometimes for coaches to become complacent or comfortable. And this is my job. Maybe I have my job security. We're doing okay, or we're doing well. What allows you to stay maybe motivated, relevant, driven when you've been in a place for a number of years?
It's a great question. And coaching is a roller coaster. And I tell my players all the time, it's never as good as it seems, it's never as bad as it seems. But I'm not just telling my players that, I'm telling myself that, because it really is an emotional roller coaster, professionally, emotionally, all of it. And, you know, early on when I got to take this job at Campbell, the move was about taking on a new challenge. It was about bringing my family to a new atmosphere. It was a lot of all of those things. And I think one of the disadvantages I've always been at early on in my career is that I was an assistant coach for 2 years. And so I didn't have that really great foundation of some of the things that I needed. However, I think I've also done a really good job of hiring assistant coaches who have challenged me in my own ways, and both, on the field and relationally, and in all the different aspects of my job. And I've always been willing to learn from their experiences, because I do want to be a better head coach for both my assistants and for my players. And so being open to new and relevant information has always been something that I've always been driven to understand and learn more about. Whether it be the X's and O's, or how we analyze our players, or just all of those things. And hiring good assistants has helped motivate me to be a better head coach, but it's also helped me to sorry, my daughter just walked into the office. One of the challenges of being a coach is being a mom and having interruptions. But yeah, just making sure that I surround myself around people who can help me be better.
Yeah, I want to talk about something you've been doing here in a little bit, but we do have a question in the chat box from Belford. Leading your team to an academic honor squad isn't a small feat. How much of your success was based on the type of student athletes you recruit versus the way you support them in their academic endeavors? What advice would you give programs that would like to achieve similar academic honors when winning seems to be the only metric that coaches are judged upon?
That's a great question. For us, it's always been that the chances of you going to play professional lacrosse is pretty minimal. Like you're not, early on in my career, you weren't going to play pro lacrosse. Nowadays, there is a chance that you can go do that. And so the number one thing that we had to sell kids on was making sure that they understood that academics is your number one priority. You are a student athlete first. And thankfully for us, I think we've always been able to find kids who have been driven academically, who have a purpose to their academic career, whatever it is they set their mind on, whether it be trust and wealth management or PT school or med school or law school. And so being able to hone in on that and showing them what their opportunities are at Campbell, I think helps, but it also helps when your whole team buys into that. So for example, like we don't recruit only kids with a 4.0, like we recruit all types of kids academically, but when they're taking each other to the library and they are tutoring each other on the road, and they're getting those same professors in their classes, and they can help each other out. I think that's always been able to be very helpful. It hasn't always been easy, but to give you an example, my goal as a head coach is to have a 3-4 every year as a team. And I went back to our captains and our leaders last year and I said, this is my goal. My goal is to have a 3-4. What's your goal? And they said, well, we think we can do better than that. And so they had a goal of a 3-5. And so now that accountability piece wasn't about what I wanted. It was about what they wanted to do for each other. And so they started talking about it. They started setting those goals and those expectations. And we ended up finishing with a 3.509, which I think is pretty incredible. So that ownership from the students, from my players, I think helped contribute to that success.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We're going to watch a quick commercial. We'll be back as we talk with Dawn Easley. The mission of FSU Coach is to prepare and equip the next generation of coaches and sports professionals with best practices and current research to enable them to pursue excellence. We have 2 academic programs, the online graduate certificate, which is 4 classes, and also a 10-class master's in athletic coaching. Our graduate certificate and master's program can be started at any time, either the summer, fall, or spring. All of our classes have the word coach or coaching in them, and they're taught by coaches for coaches.
The types of classes that we offer focus on the athlete as a whole person. We focus on the theory and practice, the research, the helping skills, even some of the mental performance behind what it goes into being an athlete. I came to FSU Coach because I truly believed in the mission and the purpose of the program.
I think I have my dream job being a head coach at Florida State, but I know there's always more ways that I can help my athletes and better prepare as a coach. So I thought joining this master's program would help me learn different ways to attack my job. If you're interested in going into coaching or joining the FSU Coach program, I would just say don't even think about it and do it.
Okay, we're back live, everybody, talking with Dawn Easley. Dawn, I'm going to get to some of the methods that you use to improve performance with your team. But first, I just want to finish talking about your coaching experiences. What would you say as a collegiate coach is the hardest part of your job?
Managing expectations, developing relationships with people of various personalities, relating to them and where they're at, time management, stress management, balancing personal life and professional life with players who are part of my everyday life, and bringing my family into it, managing my own family's time and my professional time. When I start talking about it, there isn't anything easy about it. It's all pretty difficult.
Yeah, I said, what's the hardest? And you gave me like 7.
It's not easy at all. There are some days it's easier than others. It's the most rewarding profession I think I could ever imagine for myself. It's very much a family experience for me. I'm married. I have 3 kids, and my players. One of my players is babysitting my daughter right now. So, I mean, it's a family in this atmosphere. And so being able to incorporate my family with my players makes it more rewarding. It doesn't make it easier, but it makes it more rewarding.
And at Campbell, what is the pressure to be successful on the field for you?
I think that depends on who you ask. I mean, we got into coaching for a reason. It's because we're competitive and we want to win. And so I don't think any coach you ever talk to is ever going to say that the pressure comes more from outside than it does internally. I think we all have this internal innate response to want to win games, win championships. And that there's a drive there, that drive is every day that feeds our willingness to get out of bed and go. But it's the relationships that fill that void while you're trying to get there. And that's why I get up every morning.
You said, and I wrote them down, hardest parts of your job: managing expectations, managing relationships, time management, stress management, balancing personal and professional life. How do you do that?
Support, a lot of support, finding your people. For me, I came back to when I first got into coaching. I am the average of the 5 people I spend the most time with. And if I am surrounding myself by my players all the time, I'm probably not going to succeed. But surrounding myself with the people who I can go to, my people when it gets hard, who can build me up and who can help me out when I need it, that is how I get through it. How I attack my job every day is finding my people who I can go to when I need it the most, who come to me when they realize that I need something.
Yeah, one of the things we talk about in our philosophy and ethics class, and even in stress and burnout, is incorporating the family. And you just alluded to it. And we have a question from Tessa who says, what does incorporating your family look like? Do your children come to practice?
Yeah. Having my family there all the time is the most important thing to me because it matters. When I first got into coaching, I got married very young and we had our first child, and we've never really had a lot of family around the area to help us out. And so my son came to a lot of the practices, and now my 2 older ones are in school. And so they get off the school bus and they come to my practices right after school, and they get to be around my players. My players babysit. Fortunately for us, my parents just moved into town, so now they watch our littlest, and she's been at Lyft all week. She comes. It's not every day. It's just when it works out that way. But I have my players over at my house on at least 1 to 2 times a semester where we cook and have all our players. We have anybody who's associated with our program. They come to dinner and we just have them at our house and host them, because family is the most important thing to me. And when my players look back on their experience, I don't want them to just think about, what we did on the field and how coach yelled at them because they weren't sprinting hard enough. I want them to remember that I cared enough about them to incorporate them into my personal life, but also because I care about them enough to yell at them. And so in order for my players to see the softer side, they have to see me around my children. They need to see me around my husband and see what that family dynamic looks like.
I want to change tack a little bit, because one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is to talk about some of the physiological training aspects that you do with your players. And can you talk a little bit about how you monitor your players to ensure that they are physically their best when they're performing?
Yeah. So I talked a little bit earlier about how I've brought on assistant coaches who have challenged me professionally. And one of them, I had an assistant coach named Taylor Robinson. And she was with me for quite a few years. And she was really close with someone that we work with now. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Bunn, who works at Sam Houston State. And they brought to me this idea of athlete monitoring, GPS, and wellness. And I was a business major. And so science is not my background. And it took a lot of time and effort. But I really started buying into the idea of monitoring our athletes from a both objective level and subjective level. So we started out putting heart rate monitors on our players, and we did that for a year. And what we realized was that was not efficient, and the data was not really helping us, but it gave us enough information to know that we wanted to dig deeper. So we started going with a different system, and now we use a VX Sports system. And most of our athletes are monitored in terms of GPS, and we use that data from when they do conditioning and when they do practices, we look at the data that they're giving us from the GPS. We use that to train. We use that to make decisions. We use that to understand our athletes better, but we also use wellness data. So that subjective data helps us understand who they are as an athlete and what, how they're feeling, what their opinions are, what's their RPE for that practice, what's their RPE for the lift. And when we can marry those two pieces, that wellness data and the GPS data, we get a better idea of who they are as an athlete and how they're training. So, as coaches, for example, let's say you go out to practice and while they're stretching, you say, hey, Tim, how are you feeling today? And usually the response we get is, I'm good. And then that's it. Mm-hmm. And you don't really dive deeper into that. And what the wellness data does is every morning they answer questions. And when we log in, we can see, how are they feeling? How are their muscles feeling? How sore are they? How much sleep did they get last night? How was your appetite yesterday? What's your energy level like? And it really just paints this picture of who they are as a person and what they're going through. When you talk about mental health, I mean, that is just the first snapshot and the first clue into how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis. And so when we start looking at their 7-day progression, we start seeing, we start tracking where they are throughout the week, whether it be they're really loaded down with classwork, with tests, with finals, or we just had a really hard practice that week and we wanted to see how their body went with that. Are you getting enough sleep so that you can be successful on the field and be successful in the classroom? And the GPS data tells us, how are we training you? Are we overtraining you or are we undertraining you? Are we training you to be at game speed for our season? And to be honest with you, being able to track and understand with the wellness scores and with the GPS data has completely changed my mindset as a coach. It has completely transformed the way I view training our athletes. And then once I understood the benefits of it, now I understand it enough to educate my own players so that now they can look at the data and understand, okay, that I understand that coach is trying to get us to game speed. I understand that she's trying to get us to be able to play a full game. She's not just using it. I never use it to hold it against them. I don't use it for starting purposes. I don't talk about data with one player with another player. We use it for the purpose of smart training. And when the girls become educated with it, now they start buying into how hard they're working at practice, because now they understand that the high intensity distance that they're running is really so that they can play at that high intensity in games, not just because coach is yelling at me to run harder.
You said we a few times, and I'm curious who oversees this, because if I put myself in a position of maybe a small college or even a high school, my first thought was that's a lot of data I have to collect and analyze. So do you have somebody there who actually does this?
Yeah. So like I said before, we started working with Dr. Jennifer Bunn, who's now at Sam Houston State. She was here at Campbell and her background is in athlete monitoring. Mm-hmm. And so she really drove home this idea to me, but I'm a coach. I don't understand what this stuff is. You throw numbers at me and I don't really know how to analyze it. I don't know how to make decisions based on it. And so what she challenged me was to, let's work together. Let's collaborate with exercise science department and Campbell Lacrosse. And so what she did was she was able to give us interns who are undergraduate students, mm-hmm. and they do the kind of day-to-day work. They hand out the monitoring systems and then they collect them and then they upload the information into our database. And then Dr. Bunn takes that database and she spits out all the information that we need to know as a lacrosse staff. And what they get in return is research information. And so mm-hmm. they've been able to spit out papers that have been published on women's lacrosse, which in my opinion, there's not enough of it out there. And so if you look at any research on women's lacrosse, you're going to see Campbell Lacrosse all over the place because we are spitting papers out so fast or so well and so much. And so it's kind of, we work together with each other to be able to do these things. And so when I talk about our team, we have a team of interns who do the grunt work. And then we also work with our exercise science department, and we work with our PT school to analyze the information better. And then my assistant coaches also look at the information on a daily basis as well.
You mentioned just in that conversation that women's lacrosse doesn't get as much publicity as maybe it should. I think that's general across many sports, particularly women's sports. How or what are you doing to try to increase that visibility of not just your sport, but also at Campbell University, so that you have relevance in the athletic department?
So if you had asked me this question about 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely nothing. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and I'm not really that active. But what I did notice is that there were programs who were really using social media as a platform, and to increase the visibility of their sport or their programs. And I thought, why aren't we doing that? But at the same time, I also know that I'm not good at it, nor do I have the time for it. And so I hired an assistant, Lauren is with me now, to increase that visibility. And she's done an incredible job in the last year of increasing that visibility. So we use all the things that we're doing, push it towards social media so that we can increase the visibility for women's lacrosse and also the stuff that we're doing and for our program. And what I noticed is that in the last 2 recruiting cycles, we get a lot of emails from recruits, but a lot of the emails that are coming through, the kids are saying, I saw you guys on social media. I see the things that you guys are doing. And I really like the stuff that you're putting on there. And so our visibility with recruits has been a whole lot better. I find it very ironic that that's the messaging that we're getting across, is that our program looks fun, or they really like the things that we're doing, because I think one of the things I don't like about social media is it's a platform for people to put all the good things that are going on. And I don't really like that. I think that you have to take the good with the bad. And so I'm personally right now trying to, how do I sort through, how do we put on social media to be attractive to recruits, but at the same time understand that this is a job and you have to work at it, and anything worth pursuing is not going to be easy or fun all the time. And so having said that, Lauren has done a really great job with our social media platform and increasing that visibility for our program and for the sport of lacrosse, and using our VX system, our athlete monitoring. We've tried to also push that towards social media so that we can see that there is good data out there on women's lacrosse. How can we use it to benefit all programs?
I would be very interested to know how you show the realities of your program without presenting it as just this vacation resort. If you come here and we're just going to have a great time and it's all going to be amazing, how do you show the realities of it, which is hard training and difficult losses and personal challenges? How do you do that on social media?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, but I can promise you this. I can tell you that it is something that I think is very important.
Yeah, I agree.
Because a lot of people are talking about mental health right now, and it is a big deal. It's something that needs to be addressed. But if we continue to only push the things that are good and easy, then I think it will continue to put us down this road of burnout and problems. And I think my first and foremost responsibility is my team, and making sure that they understand how to manage those things when I'm with them, not just on social media. But it is also something that I talk about with our recruits when they come onto campus is understanding. I appreciate that you like our social media, but I promise you're only seeing a split second of something that you enjoy. And I think part of learning how to understand that it's going to be hard is understanding how to love the people you're with when it is hard. And, I have to do 90% of my job in order to have fun doing the 10%. And that 10% for me is being with my players every day. And I have to do all the other stuff that I don't really want to do so that I can do that 10%. But as long as I'm going to be out there with my players, if I'm going to have to yell at them and get onto them about something, I want to enjoy it while I'm doing it. And, for me, it's the relationship piece. And if my players know that I love them and I care about them, when I'm screaming at them, yelling at them, telling them they can do better, then we're loving every moment of it because we know that we're in it together.
Just in closing, one of the things I normally do is just ask coaches to maybe share advice for other coaches that they may want to pass on for those maybe coming up through the coaching ranks, or somebody who's maybe looking at coaching high school and wants to coach in college. What would you like to share to them that you've learned along the way?
What a loaded question.
Yeah, right. That's why I wait till the last question.
Oh gosh, there's so much. I think the first and foremost is know your why. My why of my coaching has changed so much in the last 17, 18 years. And on those tough days, knowing your why and why you're in that position will carry you through. And I reevaluate what my why is every single year. And I ask my players, what's your why? Why are you here? Why do you want to play college lacrosse? Why do you want to be here? Because a lot of the time, when it's getting really, really hard, your why is what's going to carry you through that extra sprint that you don't want to do, that extra drill that you're really bad at that you don't want to have to do again. And so that why carries me through almost every single day. And then the second part is putting people around you that know and understand your purpose and are willing to support you no matter what you need, whether it be you need a height girl in that moment, or you need someone to just babysit your kids for a couple of hours, or you need someone to just vent to, or you need advice from. You've got to find your people. So I think if I could narrow it down to two things, that would probably be it.
That's great. Thank you. And if anybody's interested in reaching out after listening to the podcast, watching this show, what's a good way for them to reach you if they have questions?
Easley at campbell.edu, EASLEY at campbell.edu.
And it's up there on the screen for those of you watching online. Well, Dawn, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your knowledge and experience. Really do appreciate it. Just a reminder, everybody, we try to interview somebody once or 2 weeks on this show. So be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching and listening from. And we got one final comment. Thank you, Belford. Says great interview. Thank you for the information. That's a wrap for us. So we'll see you next week. Thanks again, Dawn.
Thank you.